Harry's Last Hurrah by Quintin Forrest. On the morning of the wedding, I woke up in Claridge's. Good old Claridge's. They look after you there, hopefully. Today, I was going to be on telly in front of an audience of millions. My biggest crowd since Mother's funeral. That unforgettable day, seared into the hard drive. However much I tried to blot it out, often, admittedly, with some success. But it was looming back now. The trek on foot, halfway across London, as the Gen Pop followed, both in town and at home, the horse-drawn progress of a doomed princess. At least this time I'd be in the carriage, I suppose. If I made it. Was I so mired in sin that I was going to disappoint? It seemed a distinct possibility. Where was everything? On Sky News, the great British public were queuing up outside the chapel. Why? What were they hoping for? Meghan, my beloved, to arrive looking totally doable in a long white dress. And for the H-Meister to show up minus his strides? Would the loathed public get their wish? Where were my trousers? The old soup and fish was laid out somewhere, surely, but where? Had I given it a test run the night before in front of the guys and the specialist courtesans Rafe knew from Babes of Mayfair? I had a horrible feeling that I probably had. Still, in theory, all I had to do was A, find the kit, and then B, ask room service to send up a chambermaid to re-iron the shirt, check the buttonhole for bloodstains, and the various collars for devil's dandruff. To deal with the cufflinks that I knew, in particular, were going to be tricky, like Marxist subversives at the end of my sleeves, given the way the old paws were trembling. Well, that's what Claridge's did for their customers, right? It was just that it seemed like an octopus of madness had laid waste to the room, ripped off my clothes, gang-banged the minibar, and then horrendously somehow polished off 5 grams of coke. There were the wraps on the table, undeniably hoovered, judgmental in the sun. Just when I could have done with a pick-me-up, too. It was like a portal of hell was going to open up under me in the car to Windsor. In about 2 hours' time. This was not how the stag do was meant to go. There had been negotiations about what form precisely the bachelor party should take. Ever mischievous, the tabloids had made a few suggestions. Private islands and the Caribbean were mentioned. Also Bangkok, Amsterdam, and Vegas, baby. How long conceivably could the party go on for? And would I have to regroup in the Priory afterwards? I'd like the sound of all of that. Well, except for the rehab. But Meghan, my beloved, saw things differently. She was sensitive, some might say obsessed, about what got said about us in the media these days. About my alleged reformation. And then there was a speculation in the press about who her father really was. I knew what that felt like. How, she'd sighed with her usual adorable South Cali air of menace, do you think it's gonna look, Harry, if you and your army buddies and those sleazebags from Eton I've begged you to stop seeing jet off around the world at the taxpayer's expense? But isn't that basically what we're doing on our honeymoon? Are you saying your bachelor party is as important as our honeymoon? I suppose not, but this is the H-Meister's last hurrah. I wish you wouldn't keep calling yourself that. But babe, I am the H-Meister. I have a fan base to think about. No, you don't. I have a fan base. You are just an overprivileged drunk.
who I'm trying to save from himself. There was something a bit J-Lo and Affleck about our relationship. Or maybe Macbeth and the Scotsman's +1. I was quite glad we were having this convo on the phone, that I'd so far resisted video conferencing. And how, she continued, do you think it's gonna look if you're YouTube with some hooker's thong on your head?
Nobody said anything about hookers. Strippers, okay, but it's not the same thing.
Explain the difference.
Could I explain? I didn't think I could. Look, a chap's got to have strippers. It's a tradition.
Like slavery, you mean? Like women not having the vote?
She was clearly very hot on all this PC stuff. What was I letting myself in for?
I thought, Megan continued, that what we were doing is breaking with tradition.
Well, isn't that after the wedding?
No, let's go with before. Now, about the stag list.
Reluctantly, I forwarded it.
30 seconds later, Harry, have you gone totally insane? Rafe, for Christ's sake, isn't he in jail?
On the contrary, his father's just passed away. So Rafe now sits in the House of Lords.
Oh my God, seriously?
I'm afraid so. And Binky, you'd like Binky if you met him.
Harry, if Binky's amnesty write-up is anything to go by, he sits on a throne made of human skulls.
Amnesty. Always glass half empty. I'm sure they're not actually human skulls.
Are you? I'm not. Harry, he's a Nigerian warlord. If even half of what Google says is true, Binky is a psychotic mass murderer.
But a bro from Sandhurst all the same. He may not actually be able to make it, though. Problems with the embassy and such.
Harry, you nearly got expelled from everywhere because of some of these guys. And as for your army buddies...
Brave men, all of them.
Well, they can talk to me, can't they?
I didn't say they were suicidal, I muttered, thinking, not for the first time, about drowning my iPhone in a large vodka tonic. So the international Bond-type bacchanal the press, and in all fairness the H-Meister, had been hoping for, was slowly diminished. One by one, potential guests and locations were removed from contention in blood-red lipstick, not Megan's usual shade. Until what I was left with was a couple of pints with Wills in a pub in Chelsea the night before. We'd watch a game of footy or something, then go for a curry, thus showing the world that we were normal blokes, regular guys in our rugger tops. Broken, emasculated. All of this carefully stage-managed by Buck House with photographers outside. Prince Harry, was the story, finally grows up. Look, guys, I wanted to say, I am not and can never be a normal bloke. I flew an Apache helicopter in Afghanistan. I've killed a lot of people. I don't know how many, but why don't you ask me about that instead of this stuff that I do for charity? I couldn't really bring it up, though. Amnesty were still on my case and about all that. So, there we were, Wills and I, in a charming old pub that had naturally been cleared of all the regulars. Bro, I said, any thoughts about the dreaded aisle? Yeah, no, said Wills, looking even more pale, drawn and haunted than usual. Marriage can be difficult. Sometimes I wonder if Kate would have looked at me twice if I wasn't to Windsor. Sometimes, I said. I think if I wasn't to Windsor, I'd be in a bloody loony bin. That has been mentioned. I see. Hasn't really, has it? Well, not a loony bin exactly. Let's put it this way. It's good that you're marrying and doing more for charity. Yeah, charity. I'm sure you're loving every minute. But chin up, mate. Remember you're a womble. We had another pint, and then Wills,
slurring a bit, added,
"They want so much, these chicks we marry. They want to be the people's princess, but the slightest misstep could mean they do mine. Go blabbing to the Murdochs with tales of drunkenness and cruelty. This thing about duty. I don't know if it sticks anymore."
"Right. You couldn't have mentioned this any earlier, could you?"
"You didn't ask. Anyway, Meghan's got you trained, hasn't she? Prince Harry, the god of riot and debauchery, is being led to the slaughter. Sorry, altar. Is she making you go for consciousness-raising workshops? Are you doing yoga? You're already booked in for prenatal classes."
Wills laughed brokenly.
"It occurs to me, bro, that you've been sexually enslaved."
"No way," I lied. Though Meghan has often talked about how much she admires Mum.
Kate feels the same.
Oh well. We'll just have to keep them on separate continents.
"Yeah,"
said Wills.
"good luck with that. Sometimes I wonder who wears the trousers in this relationship. What does being king mean anyway? You just have to go to Canada a lot. And Australia, where you know they resent you. I'm saying, bro, is you should be aware and beware of chicks who want to be the new Lady Di. Because what they always miss is how that ended."
Food for thought, perhaps. But I tried not to think about anything. Soon I'd be married. What was Meggles going to do with me later in the darkness of our suite? She didn't drink booze. She was more of a wheatgrass type. So however exhausting the big day was, it seemed a fair bet that I was going to need all my strength. I'd asked Rafe, a royal dealer by appointment, to get me some Viagra, but an early night seemed in order, all the same. The last thing a fellow wants to read on Twitter in the afterglow of the honeymoon night is,
"Meh, 2 out of 5, no Prince Charming."
this being something my adored one had threatened to do in the past after one too many underwhelming Royal Command performances. "Meggles," I'd beg, "I love you, I do, but I've been up solid for 3 days."
"I tweet how I feel, Harry,"
she'd countered.
"so you'd better make me feel good."
So I should have followed the script, really. But was the H-Meister to be so easily outfoxed, sent to bed early on his last night of Raw? Absolutely not. I'd cased the pub a week earlier, and there was another exit, out through the basement, avoiding all the photographers. So after the 3rd pint, I suggested to Wills, who, as a dad of 3, was already mullered the lightweight, that we escape to somewhere more appropriate. I'd arranged to meet Rafe, the guys, and some ladies Rafe knew at Whiskey Mist for an old time's sake. Boogie's having closed down some years earlier after what the Evening Standard described as a mass brawl. By the time the after-party finished, round 4 in the morning, a mass brawl was the least of what it looked like the room and the groom had been through. So, when you're re-watching the ceremony, laughing about the guest list, Elton John, David, Mumford and Sons, and the epic uncoolness of the whole occasion, spare a thought for the H-Meister, head hung low from cocaine withdrawal. And spare a thought for poor, doomed Meghan. Tibet, where accidents can happen, may not have been the ideal honeymoon destination from the bride's point of view. It sounded great, a spiritual adventure. Being stuck halfway up a mountain on a cliff edge with a guy who scored shrooms off one of the Sherpas, maybe less so. She really shouldn't have asked me to Instagram her while I was holding the rope. And so that, dear reader, was how my first marriage ended. In the Himalayas. It's not like she wasn't warned about us Windsors. Do not fly too close to. Not so much the flame as the 40-watt pound stretcher light bulb. If you're reading this now, in a parallel universe, a universe that's different in some ways, but much the same in others, this may not have happened yet. But trust me, it will.